environmentally friendly policies that just leads to the reduction of energy, prosperity, life, when in reality not doing much for the environment. This, as we of course saw, destructive policies that are being coordinated by other world governments, like in the Netherlands, now also in Canada, that previously were passed on in Sri Lanka, that of course reduced the ability of farmers to have the necessary ingredients to be able to sustain their farms. This, as Canada is joining Sri Lanka with their ban on particular fertilizers, which, as we saw in Sri Lanka, literally lead to an entire societal collapse, as of course there was a political collapse and then an economic collapse. Why? Well, the government there was following the policies of the World Economic Forum. They had a great ESG score, and their reckless policies limiting the ability of farmers to farm has caused massive economic upheaval, the price of food to go dramatically up, along with other deliberate policies that created more fuel shortages. And now this has not only been happening in just Sri Lanka, this is also happening in Panama, where there is massive upheaval, as of course there's food and fuel shortages. The same kind of shortages that hit Sri Lanka, the same kind of shortages that are hitting Ecuadorians that are also protesting high fuel prices and the deliberate inflation caused by the central bankers. And as we told you, this upheaval will first be felt in developing countries and soon come inwards. There's not much coverage in the mainstream corporate Western press of these larger civil unrests that, of course, are spreading like wildfire everywhere in the world, where the poorest people are told to pay the price for the political ambitions of unaccountable billionaires and their multinational corporations and banks that, of course, are having record profits. The poor people in the world are becoming poorer. The rich people in the world are becoming richer than ever. This as in China. The government there has even rolled out tanks on the streets to try to scare protesters who are trying to get their money out of the banks there. Why can't they get their money out of the banks? Well, their entire financial system is a Ponzi scheme, and your bank doesn't hold your money. They, of course, squander it, as, of course, the entire system is rigged, and they're taking more and more for themselves and leaving you with less and less, to the point where even here in the United States, AT&T is talking about a crisis within its company, as, of course, Americans are finding it harder and harder to afford their phone bills, all, of course, as the deliberate world problems brought on to us by the central controllers are becoming more and more unavoidable. What's happening in now Ecuador, what's happening in now Panama, what happened in Sri Lanka, and continuing to happen in Sri Lanka is not an accident, are not unrelated incidences. They are all a major pushback against the central controllers, the big bureaucratic governments working together and denying people food and energy. Why are they doing this? Well, it's a depopulation program, according to my own personal opinion and perspective. I talk about that on lukeuncensored.com a lot, but these are just my opinions expressed from my perspectives. If you think I'm wrong in any way, shape, or form, let me know why down in the comment section below. I always appreciate constructive criticism. I always appreciate the ability to be able to have a real, rational conversation with, of course, not just predominantly involving my ego, but being able to have a rational conversation that absolutely involves logical point of views rather than just unhinged emotions. We prioritize that, and if you appreciate that here on this independent media broadcast, share this video with your friends and family members, because while YouTube is literally promoting CNN's segment Eating Human Brains, they're of course limiting the access to this channel, prioritizing, of course, for more people to see that garbage on CNN. The only real way to fight against that is by you sharing these videos, and because you do, because you're all the way at the end of this video, because you're the real MVP of allowing these videos to get out there to the general public, this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.
All right, so at the end of that video, he said it's his opinion, depopulation, right? He's like, it's his opinion. All right, well, I got to show you some facts. Let's go to the book cam. Let's get real with this. This is the Limits to Growth document. Okay, Limits to Growth. Dennis Meadows, Donella Meadows. We're going to see them 30 years later in the update. But this is the report for the Club of Rome's project on the predicament of mankind. Now, that predicament of mankind, it looks something like this, okay? 1970, a proposal, a quest for structured responses for growing worldwide complexities and uncertainties. And the result of this report from the Club of Rome in 1970 is as follows. They desire, first, the project described herein, undertaken by the Club of Rome and dealing with the empirical aspects of the situation, its morphology and interrelationships that operate among its components. This will be a rough modeling phase. And the second, a subsequent more ambitious phase, hopefully be undertaken by the World Forum. Well, a year later, the people who brought you this document, they bring you a guy named Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum. We're going to get to that in a second. So it starts with limits to growth and the predicament of mankind. That is the problematique that is discussed still 30 years later. So these people, same people, say 30 years later, they're still working for the Club of Rome on this limits to growth problem. Now, that means you can't have population growth because the earth won't sustain it. So they're going to have to depopulate and demechanize, decivilize the planet to make this come true. But they're 30 years into it by the time they get to this book. Well, let's get to the 20th century. They're, right here, this is closer to the 20th century. First Global Revolution, a report by the Council of the Club of Rome. Same group of people, Club of Rome, same gist that they're trying to get to. And by the time you get to their chapter on not food security, here it is right here. The common enemy of humanity is man. So they just make us the enemy. In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. In their totality and in their interactions, these phenomena do constitute a common threat which demands the solidarity of all peoples, right? So they need something that brings everyone together. The real enemy then is humanity itself. But wait, there's more. You got Klaus Schwab still advancing this idea. He calls it now the fourth industrial revolution. This is the pre-COVID talk. And then once the COVID happened, they called it the Great Reset. It is still the predicament of mankind, and the Club of Rome limits the growth, planning to de-civilize, to demodernize the planet. And they do it, in plain sight. All you have to do is read their books.
And take it one step.
Please do.
Add more, one more step
Yeah.
there.